I'm going to give you a hint. I see a number of you working on the assignment. I'm going to give you a couple hints for the assignment there. So if you remember, we worked on this weather class so that when we ran it, it would go out, get today's weather, and try to extract it correctly. And we had methods here that were specific to what we were looking for. So we had like a parse temperature. I had a parse humidity method, and we call that it would go out there. And what those would do is parse temperature. Uh, we give it some weather data. So again, remember the weather data looks something like this. It's this big string of data. And then we'd look for a phrase, tag like temp or temperature, depending on the data, temp, and we'd look for that. So we would search for the index of that tag temp here. And assuming we found it, our index was greater than 0, we then extract that data, the actual temperature, based on where we found it here and return that. Now, these two, like parse temperature and parse humidity, they look very similar. You'd think, can I make a generic one? And that's what you want to do, is make a generic method called parse string data. Again, just like the other ones, we're going to pass in the big weather data, this big thing of weather data. But we're also going to pass in a tag that we're going to search for. So that'll be like temp or humidity here. So in your main program now, rather than saying parse temperature, you would call this generic method parse string data. And same with parse humidity, you'd call parse string data. The one thing now you call parse string data, you pass in the weather data, and then you'd pass in the tag like temp or humid there, whatever it's searching for. And then parse string data should look through this data, find it, and extract the temperature here. And again, it's going to look very much like this here, where we find the index and then we base that. Now, one challenge is that with temperature, in my example, I did the index plus 6, but with humidity, I did the index plus 10. And why was that? The reason is that temp, that tag was shorter. It was only 4. And then there was a quote and a colon. So I went 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. More than where I found temperature. Where humidity is a longer word, longer tag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I had to skip 10 characters before I started the number here. So again, you might have to look at the size of the tag to help you figure out what these values are here. The other thing is, how much data do you want to grab here? And so for all of this, you're going to want to search for some ending tag here. And in the data, it's kind of challenging. So like in the JSON, it's generally the number, and then there's a comma after it. So you can often search for that comma after it. But there's lots of commas. So you have to just search starting here, look for the comma. With the XML data, if you're using that here, if I'm finding temperature, you might want to do the quotes. Like it starts with the quote and ends with the quote. So maybe you can search for the quote to do that here. I'll just warn you, this year we had to switch weather services, and this weather data is harder to parse than last year's weather data. So that makes this assignment a lot harder than last year's assignment. So that's one of the challenges, I think, will be. So again, the instructions are, rather than having one index here, I think you want to do 2 indexes, the start index and then the end index here. And for the end index, you're going to have to want to do a search like for this comma one thing you can do is that with this index of, if you just specify a string, it starts at the beginning of the string, but you can specify a string and say, start searching at this index. So you could specify, you could first find where temp occurs. Maybe that's at character 245. And then you can then look, say, look through this and look for a comma starting at the start tag here. So you're probably going to want to use that. Once you have this start and end tag, you can extract it with a substring. Remember, that's what we did here. You're just going to have to play with these these values here, and see if you can get this working. So see how far you can get. If you can't get it working in all tags, you can get some good partial credit here. Couple things, yeah. So and turn that in for that. If I haven't mentioned it already, you should, before you turn this in, you should check all your tags, all your indenting here. You should be using good variable names and put in some comments in any new code you write here. So like here we have a comment describing this parse temperature, but now I don't have a comment up here. I should put a comment up here. And again, one thing I always do is I just go to source format. So don't have anything highlighted. Go to source format and it'll indent all of your code nicely. So I often do that before I submit it. Questions on this?